Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Eric Jenkins. I'm the account manager for Connecting Up at Tech Cleveland. Connecting Up is part of the Info Exchange Group, and Info Exchange is a not-for-profit social enterprise that has delivered technology for social justice for over 25 years. With over 100 staff across Australia and New Zealand, we tackle the biggest social challenges through the smart and creative use of technology. I would love to welcome you today to the webinar Google Ad Grants, Introduction and Best Practices, which will be presented by Richard Cousins from Joyful. We'll start with just a little bit of housekeeping here. All the lines are going to be muted, so if you've got any technical issues, please just type it into the questions box on your webinar panel, and I'll be able to assist you. If you've got any questions during the session, please just also type that in the questions box, and Richard will be answering those in the Q&A section at the end of the webinar. Do note that your comments and questions won't be appearing to the entire group, though they will just appear to me. If you're on a Wi-Fi connection and have multiple programs open, this can sometimes affect the quality of the audio and video of the webinar, so if possible, just close down your other programs to help you have the best experience that you can. Do note the webinar is being recorded, and a link to the recording and the slides will be sent later this week after the webinar ends, or possibly early next week, given that there's only Friday left. Before we start, I'd also like to remind you there'll be a short survey at the end of the webinar. We would love it if you could take a few minutes to provide us with some feedback on how it goes today. That's it from me for now, so I'll pass it over to Richard to get things started.
Perfect, thank you very much, Eric. Hello, everyone. So welcome to today's webinar. So we're going to be taking you into the world of Google Ad Grants today. My name's Richard, as Eric said. I'm going to be running the session, so thanks a lot for joining. Just to introduce myself a little, so I am currently heading up the Google Ad Grants management team at Joyful. We're a leading charity technology provider, work in Australia as well as New Zealand and the UK. We manage Google Ad Grants accounts for over 100 charities and nonprofits. My job in particular involves working with our range of charity clients to walk them through the process of applying for the $10,000 monthly Google Ad Grant and then helping them build effective advertising campaigns and overseeing these on an ongoing basis. It's a massively rewarding role. Over the past year, it's meant that as a team, we've driven well over 2 million extra people to our clients' websites through free marketing budget from Google. Prior to this, I spent around 4 years working in various digital marketing roles, mainly for commercial clients working in retail and e-commerce. So it's been a really meaningful shift for me to start applying that knowledge to the world of charities as well. So let's just have a quick think about who this webinar is actually designed for. So the content that we're going to cover aims to be educational and informative for quite a wide range of charitable organizations, and that's with kind of various levels of experience with the Google Ad Grant itself. So one thing that's become quite clear to me over the course of my role at Joyful is that there's actually a huge variety in this space, both in terms of what charities actually do and what they're trying to achieve, and also specifically in terms of how far they've gone with the Google Ad Grant before. So many charities will have never heard of it, others may be aware of its existence but not been able to carve out the time to actually apply successfully, and others still will be running a Google Ad Grant already but with varying degrees of success. So we're going to start at the basics here. We'll explain what Google Ads and what the Google Ad Grant actually are, how they work in simple terms, and then looking at how and why your organization could benefit from their use. We're then going to go into a bit more detail on things like some tips and tricks and best practices that are designed to help you get the best out of your campaigns once they're up and running, and to stay compliant with Google's ever-expanding list of rules as well. So let's just quickly take a more detailed look at what we're actually going to cover in the session. So firstly, in simple terms, we'll be asking the question, what are Google Ads and the Google Ad Grant? So I'm aware that some of you will probably know the answer to that already or know a bit about it, but we're going to go into more detail on how Google Ads work so that we're all at least starting off with a basic understanding of that. Then we'll move on to the question of whether your organization is actually eligible for the Google Ad Grant. So I'll ruin the surprise a bit here by saying that actually the vast majority of non-profit organizations are eligible, which is good, but we'll take a closer look at this, and there are a handful of types of organizations who may not be eligible. And then we'll move on to one of the more interesting questions. So what are the potential benefits to your organization of applying for and using the grant? So we'll dig into the key reasons why your nonprofit should be making use of it if it's not already. After laying that groundwork, we're then going to move on to some more logistical advice. So first off, how do you actually apply for the grant? Unfortunately, the process isn't actually quite as straightforward as we might like it to be, and Google have made some recent changes that compound this a bit further, but we're going to lay out each step in the process and help you visualize what's involved. We're also going to look at some tips and best practices for running a successful ad grants account. So once your account's approved, we'll look at things like how to choose your keywords, writing effective ad copy, and setting up conversion tracking. And then one of the main difficulties that some charities face in running their ad grants accounts is staying compliant with the rules that Google sets. So these got a lot stricter nearly 2 years ago, and accounts that don't stay compliant can be deactivated. So that's caused quite a few charities issues, and we'll be looking at what each of these rules entails and then running through some advice on how to stay compliant with them. And finally, I just want to leave a bit of time, as Eric mentioned, at the end for Q&A. I know that Google Ad Grants is a subject that charities often have quite a few questions on, so we'll try and get as many of those answered as we can in the time. So let's just get into it now by taking a look at what Google Ads actually is and how it works. So firstly, the reason that we tend to say what is Google Ads rather than what are Google Ads is because Google Ads is actually the name of a product. It's Google Ads, it's Google's main advertising platform. So you might also see the term AdWords used. That's an old name for the platform that Google have phased out over the last year or so, but it still gets used really regularly. So just remember that if you hear Google Ads or AdWords, people are generally talking about the same thing. The essence of the platform is allowing advertisers to run paid ads that show on Google search pages when someone makes a related search. So if you take a look at this screen grab to see what I mean, you can see that the user has searched Google for Nike trainers and a selection of results have subsequently been shown. You might also notice here that I'm based in the UK, so we are seeing UK websites, but it'll look much the same in Australia as well. So if we look at the screen grab, the first of these results highlighted in the red box are actually paid ads from commercial companies. So in this instance, it's Nike.com, jdsports.co.uk, and sportsdirect.com. If I were to click on one of these ads, I would then be taken through to the advertiser's website and to a page on the website that the advertiser has specified themselves. So in this case, I'd likely land on a page displaying their collection of Nike trainers. These ads are targeted based on the concept of keywords. So these three advertisers will have each chosen the keyword Nike trainers and added that to their Google Ads account, meaning their ads will be eligible to serve when someone searches for that on Google. You might have heard this kind of advertising also referred to as pay-per-click or PPC advertising, and that describes how the payment model works. So it's actually completely free for these advertisers to show these ads. But if I was to then click on the ad for, say, sportsdirect.com and go through to their website, Sports Direct would then pay Google for that click. The amount that they pay varies, and it depends on quite a large number of factors, so levels of competition and the maximum amount that the advertiser is willing to pay, amongst quite a few other things. Because of this model, Google Ads actually happens to be basically the way that Google make nearly all of their money as well. It's also just an extremely effective way of running targeted advertising campaigns that reach people who are actively searching for what you can offer in that very moment. Commercial advertisers like these, so like Nike and Sports Direct, will have annual budgets running into the millions of dollars for this kind of advertising. But Google also have this great program running that allows charities and non-profits to make use of that platform at no cost, and that is the Google Ad Grant. So let's just look a bit deeper into what we actually mean when we're talking about the Google Ad Grant. So the Google Ad Grant is a program run by Google exclusively for non-profits. It's available in 51 countries around the world at the moment, and it actually dates all the way back to 2003. So essentially, it's a social impact program where Google aims to connect people to good causes by way of free Google Ads marketing budget. Google has actually awarded over 115,000 of these grants to eligible non-profits since the beginning of the program, and that number is growing every day as well. So to put that into perspective a bit better, Google donated over $2 billion in free advertising in 2017 alone, and that drove 1.8 billion online visits to the websites of over 40,000 non-profits around the world. So it really is quite significant. In practice, it works just like standard search advertising, the stuff that we covered on the previous slide, but where commercial advertisers would have to pay a fee every time those ads are clicked, non-profits on the Google Ad Grant program get a rolling monthly budget of up to $10,000 to use instead. And it's worth noting as well that there's actually no risk at all in accruing any actual cost to your organization. So if you hit that $10,000 cap within a month, your ads will just stop serving until the next month. So you get up to $10,000 in budget to display text ads on Google search, which can in turn drive relevant people to your website. And the real beauty of it is that actually that budget renews every single month. So rather than being a one-off award with a finite lifespan, as long as it's managed correctly, that's an opportunity that you can continue to take advantage of for as long as the program runs. So there are charities out there who've been receiving a rolling $10,000 monthly advertising budget continuously since 2003. And the implications of that are obviously fairly enormous in terms of increased traffic, brand awareness, and ultimately on-site actions, so things like donations and volunteering inquiries. And that actually leads us quite nicely into our next slide. So what are the potential benefits of using the Google Ad Grant? The first one's quite an obvious one, but this program really does allow you to boost your marketing budget by quite a huge amount without depleting valuable funds from your organization's overall budget. So because of the targeted nature of this form of advertising, this extra budget really can be used to get you in front of the right person at the right time. There's huge value in showing an ad to someone at the exact moment that they're proactively searching for ideas related to your organization, rather than just putting an ad in front of someone and hoping that they might be interested. One of the great things as well about this form of advertising is that it is fully trackable. So as opposed to more traditional advertising like print or TV, which can be notoriously difficult to measure, you can directly track every person who arrives on your website through these Google ads. And this goes right down to what they were searching for and which ads they saw before arriving. So it's extremely easy then to demonstrate the direct impact of different campaigns or initiatives internally. And if it's used well, the Google Ad Grant can actually have a really dramatic impact on your website traffic. So we work with some organizations where the ad grant makes up over 90% of their total website traffic. And this can really help put you on the map and raise awareness of your course, especially if you're a smaller organization who's you don't have the marketing budget and the hope of competing with the bigger players on that level. The upshot of all of this is that ultimately an increase in people taking valuable actions on your website. And that's kind of the crux of the value that this opportunity provides. So a large number of relevant targeted people coming to your website means that you can recruit more volunteers, you can boost signups for fundraising events, you can increase donations, and further than this, you can generate leads, newsletter signups, and things like that. If you're hoping to push for more volunteer applications, for example, you can run a campaign to show ads to people in your local area who are searching online for things like volunteering near me. These ads can lead directly through to the page on your site that gives details of open volunteering opportunities and then invites people to apply. So that all sounds great, but what types of organizations are actually eligible for this opportunity? So I mentioned it at the start, but actually one of the great things about this program is that the vast majority of not-for-profit organizations are eligible to receive the grant. In terms of the official criteria that Google give for this, they say that in Australia, organizations have to be deductible gift recipients endorsed by the Australian Tax Office or listed by name in the tax law, or charities registered with the ACNC, or income tax exempt not-for-profit organizations as defined by the ATO. And then, as well as meeting one of these criteria, you'll also need to be located in Australia or one of its territories and have your own website on a domain that you own. So provided you meet those criteria, which the majority of organizations will do, you can actually start the application process for the Google Ad Grant straight away. Despite those relatively straightforward eligibility criteria, there are actually still a handful of organizations that aren't eligible for the Google Ad Grant. So let's have a quick look at those. So according to Google themselves, these are governmental entities and organizations, hospitals or organizations providing healthcare, although it's worth noting that if you're a charity that supports or raises funds for hospitals, then you will be eligible. And we run campaigns for quite a few organizations that fall into that category. And then also schools, academic institutions, and universities, but philanthropic arms of educational institutions are eligible. It's worth noting that some of these aren't actually quite as black and white as they seem. So we have a number of clients, for example, who are both academic institutions and registered charities. And these are things like special needs schools or colleges for disabled adults and things like that. In most cases, when they applied themselves, these organisations have been initially rejected. But we've actually been able to make use of our close connections with the Ad Grants team directly at Google to get the cases re-reviewed. And in most cases, their grants have now been approved and they're able to show ads. So that's a really great result. If you're in any doubt about any of these criteria, or if you've had trouble in the past, then it's worth getting in touch with us to see if we can help. So a lot of this rests on Google's discretion. So we can never 100% guarantee acceptance for the grant before actually starting the application process. But we do have a precedent for getting those kinds of applications pushed through. So that might all sound fairly straightforward so far, I'd hope. Unfortunately, once you've determined whether you are actually eligible for the grant, and hopefully you are, things do start to take a little bit more of a complicated turn in the form of the actual application process itself. So one of the things that we hear most often in our work with charities is that there have been elements of confusion during the course of this application process, and quite often it leads to a failure to get the grant up and running, often even just through sheer frustration. There's nothing that we can do to change the steps that are required, but we've just mapped out a fairly simple flowchart here that kind of helps you visualize what's involved. So the first step in the process is actually to register with Connecting Up, which is where you found us for the webinar today. And Connecting Up is a platform that allows nonprofits in Australia to access discounted or donated computer products like pieces of software and hardware. And it's also where you need to register in order to verify your charitable status online. Once your Connecting Up registration is complete, you can then use that to generate what's called a validation token. And that is a secure code which you can then take to a service called Google for Nonprofits and use it to register there. Google for Nonprofits is Google's nonprofit portal, so it's where you can access things like Gmail, G Suite, and YouTube for charities. And it's also where you need to make your application for the Google Ad Grant. After you've registered with these two services, you then need to create an empty account within Google Ads. So there's now 3 services that we need to be registered with: Connecting Up, Google for Nonprofits, and Google Ads. No matter where you're located in the world, so in this case Australia, to be eligible for the grant, the account that you create within Google Ads must be set to US dollars because the grant is administered in US dollars. And that's actually where a lot of people trip up. So creating an account in your local currency will mean that you get stalled in the later stages, and in the application process you'll then need to start again further down the line, which can be massively infuriating. There are then a couple of steps that have actually only really recently been introduced by Google. So those are the ones that are indicated by the orange boxes here. And this is another stumbling block, is that actually Google can update elements of the application process at any time without notice. And that can make it even harder for charities to unlock their grant. So as you can see here, there's now a training quiz and a pre-qualification survey to undertake, as well as submitting your website itself for review by Google to ensure that it meets their quality guidelines. And only after satisfying all of those steps can we actually get into the business of building our advertising campaigns, so choosing our keywords, writing our ads, and so on. And even in those stages, there are a few requirements that you'll need to adhere to, which we'll touch on later. But eventually we get to the stage, once we've got our campaigns built, where we can submit our newly created campaigns for approval by Google. Thankfully, that's the last stage in the application process. But Google are notoriously inconsistent in how quickly they review things. So this final stage we can be left a little bit in limbo. It can be really quick, or it can actually take up to 4 weeks. If you're thinking that all sounds fairly convoluted, then you'd be right. And that's actually, as I said, one of the main stumbling blocks in organizations getting this grant is that, they come across this process and it only seems to get longer and more complicated as the years go by as well. We at Joyful have plenty of experience unpicking complicated grant applications. We can handle nearly the whole process on behalf of our clients, and actually we've got a partnership with Google that means we can even bypass certain stages. So the pre-qualification survey and the training quiz, we don't actually need to take part in because we've already verified our expertise. If that application process is something that you're really struggling with, or you're stuck in a certain point of it, or maybe someone started a while back and has lost the login details and now they've left the organization, is a fairly common one we hear, then do get in touch and we can probably help you out with that. So hopefully from the last few slides you've taken just a basic understanding of what Google Ads is and how the ad grant for nonprofits fits into this, as well as having now a bit more of a sense of what the application process involves. But how do we actually go about getting the best from your campaigns once you start running ads? So this next section is going to run through some tips, tricks, and best practices to help you get your ads working well for you. We'll look at the process of choosing keywords, writing effective ad copy, and like I said, keeping on top of Google's ever-growing list of rules and regulations for ad grants. So firstly, let's just start off with a few tips on how to select the best keywords for your campaigns. This is a process known as keyword research. So as I mentioned briefly earlier, all ads run through the Google Ad Grants program are based on keywords. So in this example here on the screen, someone is searching Google for a place to donate old clothes. So they start by typing a query or question into the Google search box. This is what we call a search term. So in this case, it's where to donate old clothes. And the search results are the answers to this question. So as you can see, the top results in this case are both ads, and they're identified by the little green ad boxes underneath the main headlines. And keywords are the way in which these ads are matched to the search term the user has entered. So for example, if your organization can accept donations of old clothing, it's likely that you'd want your ad to show when someone searched for where to donate old clothes. So you might add where to donate old clothes as a keyword to your account. You've probably noticed that when we say keywords, these can actually be several words or even a question as well. And choosing the right keywords for your account is really critical to success. So the key is to choose words that are really relevant to your organization and to the service or services or information that you provide. So you want people to click on your ad, but you also want them to find value in the content that they find on your website as a result. So this relevance piece is really key. And hopefully then they'll go on to take action as well, such as making a donation or signing up for a newsletter. It's also really important to balance the reach of your keywords with relevance as well. So think hard about the intent of what someone is actually searching for. So just as an example, as a charity, adding just the keyword charity to your account might initially seem like an obvious idea. So you're a charity, there are likely loads of people searching for the word charity on Google. And we've checked it, and there are also over 8,000 people search for just charity on Google in Australia every month. But think about the intent behind that keyword. It's actually almost impossible to determine. So although there are many people searching for charity, you can't really know what that person is looking for. Do they want to volunteer for a charity? Do they want to find local charities? Are they looking for a specific type of charity? Do they even just want to find out the definition of the word charity? We really can't say. So as such, although the reach on that keyword might be good, as in there are 8,000 plus people searching for it every month, so a lot of people might see your ad, the intent can't be determined, and so the relevance is actually quite poor, or likely to be poor at least. And going back to the example of a charity that accepts donations of clothing, as that charity, it's far preferable to run a keyword like where to donate old clothes. Although the reach is a lot lower, so fewer than 100 searches per month in this case, the intent is much clearer and the relevance to what you offer as an organization is much higher. So actually you're significantly more likely to convert someone searching for where to donate old clothes into a donor of clothes than you are to gain any real value from someone searching just for charity. Of course, there's nothing to stop you from adding both of these keywords to your account, especially if you've got a $10,000 free budget. But those pieces of relevance and intent should be your guide as to what to prioritize. So you don't want a very broad keyword like charity sucking up a lot of your available budget, when actually that could be going towards more valuable and more focused and more relevant keywords. So in your search for the perfect keywords, there are some planning tools that can help you choose, compare, and find new ideas. So as we said, balancing the reach and relevance of your keywords is really important. We don't just want to be running with very broad keywords like charity, but you also don't want to end up with a lot of keywords in your account that are so specific that you're not reaching anyone. In terms of relevance, you're the best judge of what is relevant to your organization, but there are a number of free online tools out there that can help you gauge how many people your keywords might reach, as well as giving you an idea of other related keywords that you might like to add. So arguably the most effective is Google's own keyword planner. Typing a few initial ideas into here will then provide you with lists of related keywords, including information about how often they're searched every month and how high the competition is likely to be. So in this example on the screen, we can see that whilst where to donate or clothes has just 30 searches per month. Actually, the closely related term clothes donation has a whopping 1,600, and keywords mentioned in clothes bins are even higher. As we can probably judge that the intent is fairly similar across those keywords, it's a good idea to include all of them to ensure that you're showing ads to as many people as possible who are searching around that theme of clothing donation. And when you're building out a keyword list, feel free to start small and build on it as well. So ongoing refinement is quite important. And it's much better to start with a small kind of tight list of very relevant keywords and then expand upon this once you see what's working well, and spend ages trying to cover absolutely everything and then end up with a complicated, messy account from the start. As a really rough guide, most organizations would probably aim for a starting keyword list of around 50 to 100 keywords. But think about your organization's priorities. So if your only aim is to recruit volunteers, then actually you might have a significantly smaller keyword list, and that would be really, really tightly focused on people searching around the theme of volunteering. So once we've chosen our keyword list, one of the next things to move on to is writing your ads. And let's have a bit more of a look at what that actually looks like. So we can look at the different elements that make up an ad in Google Ads. And remember that we're only dealing with text ads here on Google's results pages. So there aren't any, when we're talking about an ad, there aren't any images or pieces of traditional creative to think about, but the makeup of even one of these simple text ads is actually more complex than you might think. So the first element in a Google ad is the headlines. There are 3 of them, so they're the bold blue bits at the top, and you're allowed up to 30 characters for each one. So it's a good idea to make the first of these highly relevant to the keyword that you're targeting, or even using the keyword itself if it makes sense. So Google wants to show the most relevant information possible in order to ensure the best experience for its users. And because of this, they'll reward you with higher ad positions if they think your ad is more relevant to what's being searched. A good way to boost this is by including the keyword or something closely related to the keyword in the headline of your ad. So in this example, the keyword is Great Barrier Reef, and the first headline of the ad very clearly reflects that. You should also try to use attention-grabbing or emotive language in the headlines. So, for example, saving the natural world as used here is likely a more attention-grabbing prospect than simply saying an environmental charity. And headlines are also a really good place to highlight your organization's brand term prominently. So just for brand awareness reasons, we like to put it in the 3rd position. So it's noticeable and it gets coverage, but it doesn't detract from the messaging of the first 2 headlines. Just underneath these headlines, we move on to the description elements. So you actually get 2 lines to use here with a limit of 90 characters in each. The descriptions will actually form the main body of your ad text, and they come with the highest character limit. So they're a good place to get across a bit more information about what you can actually offer. In your descriptions, you should really tailor the language to your audience. So think about your organization's tone of voice and try and keep that consistent across your ads and then your website content. And keep sentences quite succinct too. So although descriptions have the highest character limits, 180 characters still isn't a lot to play with. So keeping your sentences reasonably concise will make the information more easily digestible for users, and it'll ensure you can get your message across without running out of space. Try to evoke some emotion if you can. So people skim these ads really quickly, and grabbing someone's attention is important. In this example, appealing for help from the user and highlighting that they'd be protecting threatened wildlife around the world is likely to be more effective than just a bland description of what the organization does. And finally, you should finish your ad description with a strong call to action. So this is a really important one. You want to leave the user with a clear indication of the action they should take next. In this case, Book Now gives a clear message that they should consider booking onto one of these expeditions. As well as these elements, your website's URL will also get automatically pulled into your ads. So you'll see that in green just below the headlines. And it's actually possible to add extra information to the end of those to show the user where they'll be going on your site. So these bits of information are known as paths, and they're basically short sections after the / at the end of the URL. The paths you add to your ads URLs don't actually have to represent the real page URL, because they're often quite long and not that nice to look at, but they just used to give an indication of the content that the user can expect to find on that page. They've only got short character limits, so 15 characters max, but you get 2 of them, and they're a really effective way of showing the user that the ad is going to take them to a relevant page based on what they're searching for. And then one final one to note is that capitalization in your ads is important. So Ads written in proper case, which is where the first letter of every word is capitalized, or title case, which is where the first letter of the main words are capitalized, tend to achieve higher click-through rates. And this is something that's been repeatedly tested by various advertising agencies over the years, and the results consistently show that capitalizing more than just the first word in each sentence leads to more people clicking on ads. We're still not 100% sure of the reasoning behind it, but there are some studies that suggest that people take in the meaning of words more quickly at a scan when the first letter is capitalized. So moving on here, you might have noticed that actually the elements highlighted on the previous slide only actually made up about half of the ad. And that's because a large proportion of the Google text ad can be made up with optional things called ad extensions. These vary in their functions and what they do, but they're hugely valuable and you should try and make as much use of them as you can. So not only do they allow you to take up considerably more space on the results page, but they also let you highlight unique selling points, take people to other pages on your site, and even let people call you directly from their mobiles. So this slide is just going to highlight a few of the most useful ad extensions for use in ad grants accounts. First off are call-out extensions. So these are non-clickable bits of text, and essentially they allow you to extend your ad text to highlight unique selling points and priority bits of information. So in this instance, although the ad itself relates to expeditions on the Great Barrier Reef, we're really highlighting the organization's other related USPs on top of this. So fighting climate change, plastic pollution, protecting wildlife, for example. Up to 6 of these can actually show at any one time, and we recommend adding at least 4, if not 6, to your ads. Then there are structured snippets. So these, again, are non-clickable, and they let you show a list of things after a predefined header. So things like service catalog, courses, neighborhoods, etc. In this case, we've gone with the header service catalog and then just listed a number of different elements of the charity's service offerings, so swimming with turtles and diving in the Great Barrier Reef. And after this comes site links. Site links are arguably the most helpful and important ad extension. So they let you show clickable links underneath your ads with their own headlines and descriptions. It's great for taking up more space on the results page, and it's also excellent for highlighting other priority pages that you think people might be interested in. These can link through to different pages on your website than the main ad, so it's effectively like having up to 4 mini ads underneath your main ad. In this example, as well as the main ad about conserving the Great Barrier Reef, the organization is also able to show links to 4 other website pages. So one more general page about the expeditions they run, a page highlighting the effects of plastic pollution, one advertising teaching courses, and a page on business sustainability. And this is a really effective way of promoting areas of your site, such as pages about new appeals or services that you've launched, even when people haven't actually been specifically searching for them. Again, we'd say to add at least 4 of these, or you can, so 4 is the maximum number that will show at one time, but if you add more than 4, then they can just show in rotation. And then the final really useful extension is called call extensions. So these are particularly useful when people see your ads on mobile devices. They add a phone number to your ad, and on mobile this is clickable to call you directly. So don't feel that you have to use it if you don't actually want people calling you, but if that is a desirable action, so if you want people to call you to book an element of your service or to find out about a volunteering position, for example, then they can be really useful. It's worth noting as well that all these ad extensions can, if you want to, be easily applied across your entire account in one go. So if you don't have time to write different ad copy for lots and lots of different site link extensions, depending on what the ad is or the call out extensions, then this can be a really good time saver to just say, right, let's get things up that are generically kind of relevant to what we're doing. We're going to be taking up more space on the results page, and we're going to be making use of these extensions in a blanket way in one go. Now, unfortunately, as I've alluded to, when it comes to Google Ad Grants, it's not quite as easy as just choosing the right keywords and writing effective ads. So Google have a list of quite stringent rules when it comes to ad grants management, and accounts that fall foul of these can be suspended. These policies continue getting stricter over time and can be changed by Google with little or no notice. The most recent major change was made in January 2018, so just under 2 years ago now. And these included new rules, a whole fleet of new rules, the main ones being a new higher 5% click-through rate threshold, banning what Google sees as low-quality keywords, banning the use of most single-word keywords, requiring the use of relevant location targeting, making valid conversion tracking a mandatory requirement, and also a raft of new account structure requirements as well. The upshot of all these rule changes has been that actually the quality of advertising across the program has increased, and that's a good thing for user experience. So charities now have to serve ads that are much more focused and targeted in order to stay compliant with the rules, and that means people searching on Google are less likely to be distracted by ads that aren't quite relevant to what they're looking for. The downside to this for charities themselves is that actually it makes things much harder to manage on your own without time or prior knowledge. So let's just have a quick run through each of these rules in a bit more detail now, and we can see what can be done to help meet them. So the first and arguably the most major change to the Google Ad Grants rules was the introduction of a 5% click-through rate threshold. So for those who don't know, click-through rate is the rate at which people who've seen your ads actually click on them. So effectively, in order to meet this rule, you need an average of 5 people to click on your ads for every 100 people who see them. That doesn't sound like a particularly tall order, but actually it's a lot harder than it sounds. So the previous threshold for compliance with this rule was 1%, so the increase to 5% is a really major change. And for context, the click-through rates across most PPC campaigns for commercial companies are often closer to 2 or 3%, so 5% is quite a high bar being set by Google. So what steps can you take to improve things? Generally, a higher click-through rate indicates that you're serving more engaging ad copy to an audience who are in the right location and searching for something that's highly relevant to what you offer. So with that in mind, we can break click-through rate down into 3 easier to manage factors: ad copy, keyword relevance, and location targeting. If your campaigns are struggling with click-through rate that's below 5%, then those are the first 3 things you should look at. So firstly, just looking quickly at ad copy, it's probably the most obvious area to improve if you want to increase the number of people clicking on your ads. So think back to the last slides about ad copy best practices. Are you using your keywords in your headlines? Are you using emotionally engaging language and including strong calls to action? Are you making use of those ad extensions that we discussed? If not, then adding those in is a really quick way to probably boost your click-through rate. And similarly, if you're a local charity, adding a reference to your location in your ad copy should help. So if you're based in Brisbane, for example, and have your ads targeted in that area, mentioning Brisbane in your ad copy is a clear way to show users that you're more relevant to what they're looking for. So after this, let's think about keyword relevance. So, excuse me, it could be that your spread of keywords is a little too broad if you're struggling with click-through rate. So think about whether all the keywords in your account are highly relevant to what you offer. Check the click-through rates of individual keywords as well. So it could be that a handful of broader, less relevant keywords are hurting your overall click-through rate, and that getting rid of those would bring your average above 5%. If you're running keywords on broader match types, so there are certain types of keywords where they can match for a wider range of search terms than just the keyword itself, it could be that the keywords are matching for search terms that aren't actually relevant to what you're offering. So if this happens, Google Ads has a report called the search term report. Then here you can look and see which search terms your keywords have actually matched to. If you're seeing irrelevant things showing up, then you can add these as what's called negative keywords, which will ensure that your ads don't show for those anymore. And that again should help to boost your click-through rate. And finally, a quick fix for poor click-through rates could actually just be to narrow down your location targeting. So, for example, if you're based in Melbourne and exclusively offer services in that area, then check that your location targeting is actually set to Melbourne and the surrounding areas. Your click-through rate will almost certainly take a hit if your ads are appearing for people in Sydney when actually your services aren't relevant there. So another major rule that people often struggle with is the banning of what Google calls low quality keywords. So to define that a little, Google will assign every keyword in your account a quality score from 1 to 10. And this is based on a combination of signals. The main factors here are the relevance of your ad copy to your keyword and the experience on the landing page after someone clicks on your ad. And that can factor in load speed of your website, as well as how relevant Google thinks the content of your landing page is to what the user is actually searching for. Crucially, any keyword that's assigned a quality score of 1 or 2 in your account can mean that you'll fall foul of this rule of low quality keywords, and it means that your account could be deactivated. The best approach to tackle this issue is just to prevent it from happening in the first place. So going back to those signals I just mentioned, your keywords should be assigned higher quality scores if you're serving well-written ads that are closely related to the keywords you're targeting, and then directing your users to a closely related area of your website that loads quickly. Keeping that front of mind should help minimize issues with this rule. That said, it is pretty much inevitable that 1 or 2 keywords are going to slip through from time to time. So to stop that from becoming an issue, that could get your account deactivated, you can set up what's called an automated rule within Google Ads. And these are simple rules that you can set to run on a schedule. So creating one that will automatically pause keywords with a quality score of 1 or 2 on a daily basis should help protect you from this particular rule. And so one of the more sweeping rules that Google have introduced is to ban almost outright the use of most single word keywords. So that quite simply means keywords that are only made up of one word rather than being 2 or more words or a phrase. So as an example, if you're a dog rescue charity, you wouldn't be allowed to use the keyword dog in your account, but keywords like dog rescue, dog shelter, and dog adoption would be fine. There are certain exceptions to this rule, so medical conditions are exempt, and so are keywords like cancer or bipolar, and certain keywords that are highly specific to charities such as homelessness, bullying, and volunteering are also allowed. Google publish a list of these exemptions online, so it's worth checking before adding single word keywords. If you think that you do have some of these kind of keywords in your account, then an easy way to check for this is to use the filtering feature in Google Ads. So simply filter for any keywords in your account that don't contain a space symbol, and that resulting list will show up any single word keywords lurking in your account, and you can then cross-check that against Google's exemption list and pause any that aren't on there, and that will keep your account on track with this rule. The next major rule is around the locations your ads are shown in. So I alluded to this earlier, but with Google Ads, it's possible to set precise locations your ads are shown in, right down to specific cities, neighborhoods, or even postal codes. This is known as location targeting, or sometimes it will be called geo-targeting. So as of January 2018, when those new rules came in, accounts must use relevant geo-targeting for their ads, or again, they risk being deactivated. So it was previously common for people running ad grants campaigns to target their ads globally to maximize any available traffic, but this is no longer allowed. So this rule actually makes total sense from a relevance and user experience point of view. So you may well be able to drive more traffic to your site by setting global targeting, but the relevance of people coming to your site will suffer hugely as a result. It's better to have 100 people coming to your website from your, who are from your country or your local area, and then actually engage with what you're doing, than have 1,000 people come to your site from the other side of the world and then leave straight away. That said, don't feel the need to restrict things too much. So if you serve the whole of Australia or the majority of Australia, then targeting nationwide is fine. If you only work in Sydney, then targeting your ads within, say, a 50-mile radius of the city might be better than for reach than just targeting within the city limits itself. And as if this process wasn't tricky enough for charities to manage already, Google now even require your account to be structured in a certain way in order to satisfy its rules. So I'll try not to go into too much boring detail on this one, but essentially there are 3 structural rules that you'll need to adhere to when you're setting up new campaigns. So firstly, each campaign that you create needs to have at least 2 ad groups within it. Ad groups are groups of keywords and ads that are linked together, so make sure that you're adding at least 2 of those to every campaign you create. Secondly, each ad group that you create must have a minimum of 2 active ads within it. So you can actually create 2 different ads with just minor variations. So say testing out 2 different calls to action at the end of your ad text, and that will satisfy that rule. And finally, we discussed site link extensions when we covered the topic of ad extensions. So they're the ones that sit underneath your ad and can link through to different pages. And to be compliant with Google's rules, you actually now need to be using at least 2 of those, although they're so effective that we would always recommend using more. Now, one of the more advanced rules now in place is that all ad grants accounts must have valid conversion tracking set up. This one is a bit more technical, it involves a bit more work to get right, so let's just take a slightly deeper look at what that means and how it can be done. So firstly, let's actually define what the term conversion actually means. It's one thing to direct a lot of relevant people to your website and show them great content, but to get real value from the Google ad grant, you also want those people to take action. So making donations, inquiring about volunteering positions, submitting contact forms, making shop purchases, things like that. And that's what we mean when we talk about conversions, those real tangible results gained by people taking action on your website. And it's now a requirement that we have to set up tracking for those actions in order to remain compliant with the rules and remain eligible for the ad grant. If they're set up correctly, these actions can all be tracked and attributed back even to individual ads or keywords. So if someone clicks on your ad for volunteering in Perth, for example, and then goes on to fill in an online volunteer application form, we can track that conversion right back to the specific ad that the person clicked. It's great for showing real tangible value to your organization of running these ads, It makes a much more compelling case to say our ads led to 50 newsletter signups than to just say our ads were clicked on 500 times. And it also helps to show which ads are the most effective across your campaigns. So if 2 ads have received the same number of clicks and one has led to 25 conversions whilst the other has only led to 5, that's a clear indicator that the first one is working better and should be your priority. So when we talk about setting up conversion tracking, there are actually multiple ways of achieving this, but the easiest way is through a platform called Google Analytics. It's fairly likely that you might have heard of this already, but it's a free platform that you can link to your site to measure people's on-site behavior. It actually lets you track all website activity, not just traffic through Google Ads, so it's a really valuable free tool to have at your disposal. The first stage in setting up this conversion tracking is to actually set up an account with Google Analytics and link it to your website if you haven't already. Once this is done, you'll be able to use Google Analytics to see detailed data about your website's usage. So things like how many people have been visiting your website each day, which pages they've been viewing, and things like that. And making use of some of this data means we can start to understand how many times users are taking valuable actions on our website. So the easiest way to set up tracking for a conversion goal in Google Analytics is called destination-based tracking. And at its simplest, it's just a counter of the number of people who've landed on a specific page on your website. Where this gets useful is when you combine it with a very specific website pages that can only be accessed by completing a valuable action, like making a donation or submitting a form. So if, for example, your website includes a volunteer inquiry form, you should set up a thank you page on a separate URL that someone is taken to after this is submitted. And this will allow you to display a simple message thanking the user for their interest and telling them what to expect next. And crucially, it also then means we can then count a successful volunteer inquiry submission each time someone lands on that page. Easy conversion tracking like this does mean that your website pages need to be set up in a trackable way. So as an example, we worked with a dog adoption charity in the past who had great content on their site. They had excellent profile information pages for each dog that they currently have up for adoption. The issue we had was that to express interest in actually adopting one of those dogs, website users were just told to send an email or ring a phone number to discuss things further. And those kind of actions are difficult, if not impossible, sometimes to track online. So we were driving significant volumes of traffic to the client's website through Google Ad Grants, but we had no concrete way of knowing how many of these users were actually going on to inquire about adopting dogs. We worked with the charity to implement a simple inquiry form on each of dog's profile page, and that was then, when that was submitted, the user was then taken to a thank you page. On that thank you page, we then set up tracking in Google Analytics to say each time someone lands on that page, we'll count it as a dog adoption inquiry. And through that, just that simple change, we were able to track really accurately how many people were submitting these inquiries after clicking on our ads, and also keep Google satisfied on their rule of conversion tracking. So that was a really good win-win situation. I'm actually going to start wrapping up here now. So I'm just conscious of time, and I'm aware that there'll probably be a few questions. So I really hope that you found the session informative so far. I hope that you've now got a bit more of a grasp on how Google Ads works, how the Google Ad Grant fits into that mix and provides nonprofits with a big chunk of free marketing budget each month, as well as the huge range of potential benefits that could bring to your organization. You should also be clear on which kinds of organizations are and are not eligible, and as well as having an overview of what the actual application process itself looks like. For those of you who have a live Google Ad Grants account already or hope to in the future, you should now also have some ideas at your disposal to help you choose appropriate keywords, write effective ad copy, measure success with conversion tracking, and hopefully stay compliant with Google's ever-evolving rules. Just before drawing things to that close, I wanted to mention one more thing, which is called the Ad Grant Certified Professionals Community. So this is an initiative launched directly by Google last year, and it seeks to validate agency partners with specific expertise in managing Google Ad Grants accounts for their clients. We're actually now excited to say that we've been accepted, so Joyful have been accepted into that program, and Google have awarded official status as a trusted provider of ad grants management services. And that's after conducting a thorough audit of the accounts that we're managing. So this makes us one of just a handful of certified agency partners serving Australia, and we're really looking forward now to working more closely with the team at Google to shape the future of the Ad Grants program as a result of that. It also gives us access to things like priority technical support, exclusive educational resources, betas of new features, and all of that means that we'll be able to work more effectively for our clients. So that really does wrap things up. thanks again for listening, and I'll hand back over to Eric now. Maybe we can run through a few of the questions that have been sent through.
Thank you very much for that, Richard. We have got several questions actually, so we'll try and get through as much as we can.
Sure.
I'll cover a common question myself very quickly that I did get throughout the webinar from some of our New Zealand members. Yes, the program is available in New Zealand. There is criteria for it. It's very similar to the Australian criteria. You have to be an organization located in New Zealand or Tokelau. You have to be a charity registered with the Charities Register in New Zealand, or a donee organization approved by the Inland Revenue Department, IRD, or a not-for-profit organization approved for income tax exemption by the IRD. So very similar. The only other difference as well is that you'd be registering with the TechSoup New Zealand, which is techsoup.net.nz, instead of connecting up. That's just if you're in New Zealand. That's the big question that we did get a bit. I did let people know through the panel, but yeah, I just wanted to flag that for everyone else. Now I will hop into everyone else's questions. Again, we have got quite a lot here and I am conscious of time, so for any that we won't get to now, we'll try and get to those offline. But starting from the top here, I will go back. So back at the beginning when we were talking about the account setup process, we have had someone ask, does the Google Ads account have to be empty?
Yeah, so now this is actually a new rule as of April this year, and they've now broken that stage down. So initially you have to you have to fill in the training quiz and the pre-qualification survey, and create an empty ad grants account, an empty Google Ads account, and send this away as part of the initial review from Google. So it's now actually broken down into a two-stage process. And this initial review, you just submit an empty account and they actually mainly review your website. And then once that comes back as approved, so that's what they call pre-qualification, then it will move on to the next stage, which is then building and loading in your campaigns into that account and applying for the grant properly. It's quite frustrating, but
That's all right, thanks for that, Richard. Now I've got a couple of questions here that are very similar, so I'll give them both at once. So the first one is that the first scenario is that if our not-for-profit has already received a grant, but it's left unused for a few months, can we still access it again or does it cancel? And the second question, which is somewhat similar, is that our NFP was accepted for ad grants only at the time. They didn't have anyone on board who knew what to do with it, so they were disqualified. Is it possible to reapply and be accepted?
Great, and yeah, so the answer is yes to both of those. And the first one, it sounds like there's a bit of not even kind of, we're not quite clear on whether that account has been deactivated or not. If it hasn't, then you can jump right back into it and create new campaigns and get your ads up and running again. Or for the second one, where it sounds like the account has been deactivated, you'll need to just make changes along the lines of Google's rules that is set out. But yeah, it's extremely rare and only in kind of egregious sort of circumstances that Google will actually rescind a grant entirely. It's much more common to just deactivate the account temporarily, and then once things are ready to be managed again, and once things are compliant with their rules, then you can apply to get it back up and running.
Awesome, thanks for that. All right, the next question, we've got probably more of a website question here, which is, how do I know if our organization owns the domain for our website?
Good question. I think you'd probably have to speak to the person who actually administers your website on that one. I would assume for the most part, even if you're running your website through an external provider, usually you retain ownership of that domain and that website. But I think that's probably one to check with your website provider.
Excellent. All right, we've got a question here which was around the setup of the ad. So where there was a question on the call extension part of the ad, the question was, can that call extension also be an email address?
No, it can't, I'm afraid. So that just has to be a phone number for now.
All right, no worries, thanks for that. Now we've got a few questions about that 5% click-through rate, so I might run through a few of those right now. Sure. So the first one we've got is that the 5% click-through rate threshold means each ad must have a certain amount of clicks per month, or must it because of that requirement?
No, so this is yeah, something that comes up fairly regularly. So the 5% click-through rate is an average across the entire account. So it's actually perfectly fine to have individual ads or keywords within the account that are below that average, as long as across the whole account, on average, 5 people out of every 100 who've seen your ads have clicked on them. And that's one thing where actually, you know, if you're only just below the 5% threshold, then actually just pausing some of your really lowest click-through rate ads and keeping some of the others that are kind of hovering below the threshold can bump that average up to over 5%.
All right, thanks for that. Now, we had a follow-up question somewhat on that, which was, does the 5% click-through threshold rate approval mean that smaller NFPs are less likely to get approved or possibly maintain this grant?
No, not necessarily. I think possibly only indirectly in the fact that smaller NFPs maybe have fewer resources to put towards managing it themselves. And so in that sense, it can be, it could, I suppose, be harder to maintain the 5% click-through rate. But technically, that rule applies the same across all organizations.
All right. What happens if you don't meet the 5% click-through rate for your website across the board?
So if you don't meet the 5% click-through rate threshold for 2 consecutive months, then Google can deactivate your account. And that, again, is one of those temporary deactivations where you'll get a notification saying that your ads will stop serving, and you'll have to go in and make changes to the account before then applying to have it reactivated.
Okay, excellent. Now, another question we've got, again on 5% here, does that 5% have to be from the first month?
No, so they actually only, in theory, they're only supposed to start measuring that from after your account has been live for 3 months. In reality, they're a little bit iffy on this one. So we have had some accounts flagged in the past where actually they've only been live for a week or two, and their click-through rate isn't quite high enough yet, which is completely normal as things settle in. I would say generally, as a rule of thumb, if you're in the first 3 months, you'll be okay. But do just still kind of watch out for if it's really low, then Google should actually send you through a compliance report each month, and that should give you a warning if you're in danger of being deactivated for something. So just keep an eye on that in the first 3 months anyway, just in case.
Excellent. All right. And we've got another question here. Is it true that smart campaigns don't have a requirement for 5% click-through or conversion tracking?
Yeah, so smart campaigns are they're an automated campaign type that you can run on Google. And yeah, so those are actually exempt from the same compliance requirements. What we've seen almost across the board with smart campaigns is that levels of traffic and spend are far, far, far lower than what it would be if you set up the same kind of targeting in a manual campaign like the ones we've covered here. So although you have that slight silver lining of being exempt from some of the rules, you're almost certainly not going to get anywhere near the coverage that you should be getting.
Excellent. All right. The next question I've got here, can telephone calls be tracked and used as a conversion?
Yes, they can, yeah. So if you're using this call extension, for example, on your ad, then you can then go into Google Ads, and in the conversion section, you can set up calls from ads as conversions as well. And there are also slightly more complex ways of actually tracking calls to numbers on your website as well.
Excellent. All right, now I've actually got a few questions here about Joyful, specifically on who you are, what are your contact details, and what packages you might offer. Have you got just a couple of minutes that you can explain about Joyful while we're here?
Sure, yeah. So because I'm the ad grant specialist, I'm potentially not the best person to run through the actual packages and the commercial side of things. But what we will be doing is putting up a poll at the end of this webinar, and if you're interested in hearing more about the packages, then just tick yes to say that we can contact you, and someone from our team will get back in touch, and we can discuss requirements. But I can say that our prices are, we aim to do things really efficiently, and so we aim to keep our prices significantly lower than most of our competitors.
Excellent. All right. And just to follow up on what Richard's mentioned there, so in that post-webinar survey that you'll be getting, that is where that option is to opt into that. So again, if you are interested, just keep that in mind and feel free to opt in so we can pass your details along. All right, getting on here. So we've got another question here. Does the new ad account have to be set in US dollars, or can it be done in Aussie dollars?
Yeah, so it's crucial that it's done in US dollars. So you can have your you can have the country for the account set to Australia, and you can have the time zone set to Australian time zone, but the currency has to be US dollars. Otherwise, you'll just run into issues further down the line, and you won't be able to get the grant approved.
Okay, excellent. I've got another question here. What's involved in reactivating an account that's been suspended?
Yeah, good question. So Google do actually have an online form, which is quite well hidden. But if you Google something like Google support ad grants account reactivation, then there is a form that you can dig out on their support pages where you can enter the details of your account and the details of your account, what changes you've made to bring it back into compliance. Send that away to them, and they'll usually review those within a couple of weeks. And if you've made the changes in the right way, then they'll get you back up and running again. Or another alternative is to give them a call. So Google's open support phone lines they're actually quite hit and miss with Google Ad grants. They're very much geared towards commercial Google Ads, and some of the people that you end up speaking to don't have quite as much expertise as we'd hope. But those are the two main options: either the online reactivation form or giving Google a call.
Excellent. All right. Now, I am conscious of time here because we have hit time. Are we okay to keep going for a few more minutes, Richard? Or?
Yeah, that's fine.
Excellent. All right. Now, we have too many questions, unfortunately, to cover even just a few minutes here. So I'll try and just select a few more to cover, and then I'll give you just a couple minutes to close out before I close. But if I'm going through, we did have someone else ask around this empty account setup. What exactly does empty mean in that context?
Sure. So an empty account basically means that you're creating a brand new Google Ads account, and you're leaving it empty in the sense that you're not actually creating any campaigns or choosing any keywords or writing any ads within that account before applying for that first pre-qualification stage. So all you're doing is creating that account with the currency set to US dollars, and then just leave it alone and leave it with no campaigns or anything in it, and then apply for that first stage.
Excellent. All right. Now, I've got a couple of questions on the amount itself that Google are providing in the grant. So it's been asked, does that $10,000 expire every month, or does any money carry over? And the follow-up to that, is there any daily budget on that, or is it just the monthly rolling total?
Sure. So in terms of the budget expiring, so technically it does expire each month, but because it's just a rolling allowance of up to $10,000 every single month, nothing rolls over, but it's actually such a high level of budget that realistically the vast majority of organizations won't actually spend quite that amount. You can certainly spend decent chunks of it, but it's not quite the same as having a huge chunk of money left unspent every month that's then not rolling over to the next month. And then, sorry, I can't quite remember what the second question was.
No, that's right. The second question was, is there a daily limit or budget? How much?
Yeah, sure. So yes, and actually that is how that $10,000 a month is worked out. So there's a daily spend cap of $329, I think it is, every day. And so once you hit that cap in the course of one day, then your ads will stop serving.
Excellent. All right. Now, I'll pick out one last question here before we stop. Now, sure. I guess the question is there a New Zealand company, i.e. Joyful equivalent, that operates in New Zealand that can help out with this? Now, I guess the question is, does Joyful actually operate in New Zealand here?
Yes, so Joyful, we operate in Australia and New Zealand, and we do actually have some New Zealand clients running ad grants already. So yeah, that's absolutely something we can help with.
Fantastic. All right. Look, I know that there are many questions that we unfortunately haven't been able to get to. What I will do is, when our events coordinator, Tina, is back in the office, we'll work with her to make sure that we get all of those questions exported in a list, and we'll work with Joyful to try and answer as many of those as we can. Looking at some of those questions, it might actually be pertinent for some of our team here to answer some of the eligibility stuff as well, just because we do handle some of that criteria. So for some of you, you may actually be hearing from our customer service team if it's eligibility or application related, because we can help out with the very, very start of that process in terms of registering with us and whether or not your specific organization may or may not be eligible, because that's actually what we try and assess. Now, with that being said, Richard, are there any last words from you and the Joyful team here?
Yeah, so I just had one more thing that I wanted to highlight. So again, thank you everyone for attending, and as a special offer for connecting up and also for TechSoup New Zealand members, you are actually eligible now to receive your first month free when you sign up for the Joyful Google Ads Management Service. So if you want to learn more about that, then just select the option in the poll that's coming up for our team to be able to contact you, and someone will get in touch. And that first month is actually valued at $350, so it's a significant saving.
Excellent. All right. Well, look, thank you very much, Richard, for presenting today, and thank you everyone for showing up. It's been fantastic. We will be getting the recording up again either tomorrow or very early next week, so the recording and the slides will be available. Again, we'll be working to get all of your questions answered, so please do keep an eye out for that. Again, it might take just a little while for us to get on that. Unfortunately, our main events coordinator is out attending an unwell child today, so hopefully she'll be back tomorrow and we can get on this again. So again, thank you for sticking with us, everyone, as we went just a little over time here. Enjoy the rest of your day. We look forward to seeing you next time. Have a good one.
Thanks, Eric.